into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human.
I got something not too long for you.
All right. Hello. Yeah. I keep forgetting that I have to intro the show.
Oh, hello there.
Oh, hello. Hi.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Hi.
I was just jacking off Anders. Thanks for coming.
You were jacking me off?
Yeah.
That's called J6.
Woo!
Jack off.
It only takes 6 pumps for Alex to jack me off.
That's why they call him 6-pump Anders.
Yeah, he's the Patriot. For Patriot, it only takes 6 pumps to jack off.
It's not gay to help a Patriot release.
No, it's patriotic. It's for Lady Liberty.
I wonder. So, if they had a jack off race and it was measured by number of pumps,
of course,
would people just find a way to do it really slowly? I wonder.
Find a way to do it really slowly.
You would need soft hands and incredible pressure.
I think you would just have to measure it by time.
Thank you for listening to our very serious podcast about the Honorable Senator Mike Gravel. Rest in peace. Rest his soul. This podcast is dedicated to his memory.
Right. We're talking about him today. Remember when he was on our show?
Yeah.
Good old 2019.
Oh, man. Watching the film about Mike Gravel and his political campaign for president involving the teens and the Twitter, it was a walk down memory lane. I had a really good time remembering what it was like in the before world when the biggest threat to my existential existence was Pete Buttigieg or something, or Beto.
I actually felt like that was painful for me, but it was good.
Yeah, somewhat painful. It is interesting how COVID is in some ways comparable to 9/11 as a paradigm shifter. And I've said that just as I found the year 2000 to be quite fascinating because it's like looking into a strange mirror where things are similar but completely different because 9/11 has not completely changed politics, culture, etc. 2019 will be like that. People will look back on 2019 as the before time, COVID. But it is interesting how many things have actually, politics has not completely exploded in the same way that it did after 9/11. There at least is discourse about the way society should function. I think that's probably because of the nature of the two beasts, but COVID has killed way more people. Fair enough. Imploded. But
and that people have strong opinions that don't seem like they can go anywhere.
That's true. But at least it's not like 9/11 where everybody has to sort of indulge this jingoism after something that killed way less people than COVID. So that's just my 2 cents.
They've tried to make the jingoism happen a few times with regards to like China.
Yeah.
But short of really the thing where you pin COVID on China, short of that, the only way to do jingoism about this is to do the speech from Independence Day and make it about aliens.
Yeah, they will not defeat us.
Yeah, or just the germs. The germs will not defeat us. We will not go into the darkness or whatever.
Going to war with soap.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a very exciting. Has anybody considered this a very exciting? What was that Chris Rock movie where he's a white blood cell?
Osmosis Jones.
It could be an exciting Osmosis Jones, and no one has said this, and no one is getting in there and getting Osmosis Jones in these pitch rooms to go and fight COVID, his greatest villain yet.
Right? They need to do a sequel, maybe even a live action Osmosis Jones. I think it's time for that.
Well, a bunch of it is live action, like Bill Murray sneezing.
That's true. That's true. But full on live action. So the internal organs, they would be, I guess, filmed in some
you could
foam
see
gymnasium.
the liver.
I want my colon to be played by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Very nice segue.
We have a lot to cover here today. First of all, quick plug for Behind the Paywall. We did an entire J6 episode. What happened at J6? Would you like to hear what's been going on back there since then? But we did record it on January 5th, and there were some exciting updates the next day.
Right. And when we recorded, we were like, is all of this going to be irrelevant tomorrow? Is there going to be, are they going to, blow up the Capitol? Are going to take the White House tomorrow? We don't even know. Mm-hmm. But it, was a whimper. Nothing really. There was, as far as I saw, not nary a right-wing demonstration. This, and I will say I did predict this. This was really a day for
the liberals.
Yeah.
It's a liberal holiday now. You get your J6 tree. And you weep at it.
It's like a liberal battle of the Alamo or something.
Right.
But they did do a hell of a ceremony to celebrate. Congress invited in conservative foundation Dick Cheney to come and heal the nation's wounds. By getting the most evil man alive in a room and showing him songs.
I love, who unites this country more than Dick Cheney? All of us agree with Dick Cheney about something, Truly an everyman, center of the aisle.
God. And as we noted the other day, Cheney was part of a successful coup. He literally was in the Bush-Cheney campaign in 2000, where they had staffers go into the recount office and physically stop it from happening.
Right. The message is, now this is how you do a coup.
Yeah.
With respect.
Right. It was the Brooks Brothers riot, and that's really the problem they have with January 6th, is people were wearing Carhartt, and they should have been dressed up nicer.
It's just such a great example of the fundamental misunderstandings happening here at the level of power that they're at, because the people at the insurrection don't like Dick Cheney. Nobody likes Dick Cheney. That's not why he was vice president. It's because he's a shady, money operator lurking in the shadows and killing people.
Well, wasn't it Bush had tasked him with finding a vice president? And he found himself. There's some accounts of it.
That's pretty baller, actually.
In the movie,
really cool.
In the movie Vice, it's I want you to do it.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why anyone would want him to be running for anything, but I guess that goes to W's political instincts.
I don't know. But the other thing that we have to cover about this, so they invite Dick Cheney in, and you're wondering what's the actual celebration for this, during the summer protests in 2020, the Democrats all wore dashikis and got down on one knee. This time they invited Lin-Manuel Miranda in to sing a song from Hamilton, which is at best loosely connected to what was going. I couldn't string that one together. I think they just like them and are they're here too.
American history.
The opposite of Dick Cheney.
Exactly what it is. There's no coherent thread to any of this. They just throw Lin-Manuel at shit when they feel sad. He's like a clown for them, or like a VHS stick you put on to entertain your unruly child. People love that shit. They're idiots.
And all the actors, so they have all the actors from Hamilton singing one of the songs, but it's over Zoom, so it doesn't sound great, which is what about the 1,000 recordings you have of them doing this not over Zoom? Right. We didn't want to use those.
And they've performed at the White House before. They did it under Obama, so I don't know.
What a hot cottage industry to get into, just political class clown that you get brought in to cheer everybody up when they see the walls coming in around them.
Hamilton is such a good grift if that's what you're trying to make money off of, though, because it's modern liberal shit where it makes the white people in the ruling class feel like they're down and that they're inclusive and stuff because they're enjoying rap music, which is something that even old people today like kind of can't get away with. Just I don't like it, so it's like you have to make the most sort of milk toast. Like,
my problem is it's not lyrical enough.
It's not educational, and so, God, I mean, what a good idea. What we should listen. We got to make some cash. We got to come up with something like this. How about like daggering? We bring daggering to old white establishment people, but we make it. We'll dress up with like powdered wigs and stuff.
And this is juggling with daggers. What is that exactly?
Daggering?
Like
No.
Throwing it.
No.
Juggling with daggers.
No, do a YouTube search. Daggering is like it's like a specific subgenre thing of like twerking, where basically you're just like sort of shaking your body, and then like, or like the main thing is it's like a woman will be kind of twerking, and then a guy like sort of runs up and then like jumps in the air and then like snatches her between his thighs and then is like hanging off of her.
Okay. It's like a
shit,
like an erection body slam.
Yeah, there's like a guy. Fucking one of the people who made it famous would do this shit where he would like bring a ladder on stage and like jump off of a ladder and then land on someone and dagger them. Nice. But so picture this, right? But it's the story of Benjamin Franklin, who
was notoriously
kinky,
blowing out the female population of 1780 or whatever. And he's played by Major Lazer, and he's going in and just absolutely wrecking these women, but for America.
Instead of like like that laser sound, it's like flutes, because it's the guy from the Revolutionary War. You can picture it, right?
Yeah. I mean, we could make a musical about the Mexican-American War, and conservatives would be like, "Oh, that's cool. That's good that we did that. Stole 2/3 of Mexico. Hell yeah!"
Based.
I'm down with the homies.
Well, okay. So that was just a fun update on that. But we're talking about Mike Gravel today.
Yes.
First of his name.
His real name is Maurice Gravel, which I guess he...
What?
Yeah, his real name. He was French Canadian. His parents immigrated from Canada to Massachusetts, and I guess he started going by Mike because that sounds very similar to Maurice Ravel, which is a composer. He's a fascinating figure. But one thing I wanted to highlight before we go into the interview is his role in ending the Vietnam War. It was not just him, of course, but he was a senator from Alaska throughout the 70s and was elected in 1968, interestingly, by running to the right of the Democratic incumbent, I think in Ernest Grunig. But he did this by just basically, by his own admission. He says, I was very Machiavellian about this. He said, I don't think we should just get out of Vietnam willy-nilly or something like that. He just made this very vague statement in a film that he cut on the cutting edge of media at the time and sent it around Alaska, and a lot of people saw it. And he was giving the impression that he was to the right of the incumbent on Vietnam. Really, he was just opposing him because the guy was really old, and Mike Gravel was super ambitious. And then he wins and becomes staunchly opposed to the Vietnam War as an actual senator. What's that?
Psych.
Oh, psych. He did a psych. That's right. That's right.
I didn't mean to interrupt the show. Yelling psych.
Right. Psych Gravel. That's what his name became. But so in the Senate, he's fighting the draft, and he takes some credit for ending the draft by voting on cloture and stuff like that. But what he's really known for is the Pentagon Papers, which, of course, were released by Daniel Ellsberg, who was worked at the Pentagon and was slowly turning against American imperialism. and decided that the American people need to know all the lies that their government has been telling them about Vietnam.
Lie alert.
Yeah. So he gets this document together, and Mike Gravel is anti-war, so they team up, and Gravel says that because of the Constitution's speech and debate clause, he would be allowed to put top secret documents into the record for the Senate. But to do that, they have to go. And there is a great speech Mike Gravel gave in 2007. You can find it on YouTube, of going through this story. And he does such a good job of telling the story in a compelling way, and it's funny, and it's great. He had a background in intelligence because he was a veteran, served in, I believe, World War II, and so he planned out this thing with one of Ellsberg's associates, where they met on the Capitol steps, and they run into Bob Dole, and Bob Dole was Gravel's enemy, so he tells him to fuck off, and then he runs into some Alaskans who want their picture taken, and just all this crazy things happening. And then finally he gets the documents. They pull up their cars in front of the Mayflower Hotel, and the guy gives him the documents, and he gets to the Senate, and they have to figure out how to do it because the rules are very wonky. And he finds kind of a loophole, I guess, and decides to read them at a committee hearing that is not for Vietnam. It's for the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. So he gets this congressman to testify as to why his district needs a federal building, and Mike Gravel says, "That's great. I love that idea, but we can't afford it because of all the money we're spending in Vietnam." So he does a segue into reading the Pentagon
Is this
Papers
why
up.
he's your hero? Because he's a Segway legend?
Yeah. And that's how we got around probably later in life, I would imagine, segue. But he reads the papers, and the most compelling part about this story to me, and I think this really explains a lot about Mike Gravel, is he's supposed to read these papers, and he's like the only senator they can find to do it. So he has to basically filibuster. But he's dyslexic.
Oh my God.
And if you listen to the original tape of him talking about Vietnam and reading the papers, he's like, bodies severed. He's trying to say severed, but he's dyslexic.
That is.
It's in the documentary.
Yeah. I thought he was just like ludicrous when he calls him Ursher. He just talked like that.
Yeah, no, he's dyslexic, and I, have sort of am an honorary dyslexic. Many people have thought I'm dyslexic, just for having low intelligence quotient. But
right.
I know,
There's
a lot
a
of
plaque on your wall.
Yeah, but having gone to a school for learning disabled kids, most of my classmates were dyslexic, and one thing that really left an impression on me, a lot of very bright people are dyslexic because it just means your brain works in a slightly different way from, I'm hesitant to say most people's, but the norm, the expectation. And because of that, you get a lot of really brilliant and courageous people who have to, spend their upbringing fighting against this thing and compensating for it, and they eventually get tenacity and resolve. And I think that really goes a long way in explaining Mike Gravel. So he gets this into the congressional record. Bob Dole is furious at him, who somehow managed to outlive Mike Gravel.
Not by much.
Yeah, by a few months, yeah. But he is almost sent to jail because of.
Do you think his heart was broken and without like an enemy? You know how like when a husband dies, the wife has a shorter life.
I think Bob Dole has no shortage of enemies.
Yeah.
But it's so for a while it looks like he's gonna have to go to jail for doing this because this is top secret information. But luckily the Supreme Court rules in his favor, and they managed to get it published, the Pentagon Papers published, with Beacon Press, which is run by the Unitarian Church. So, moral of the story, and Mike Gravel was also Unitarian, the Unitarians saved the day.
And the moral of the story is Unitarians saved the day.
That's right.
That's for a different film.
But it really is an incredible story, and people should watch him tell it on YouTube because he's a great storyteller and does a great job. And, like, you know, we need sometimes people in the right position to do that stuff. Because without him, and this is a point he made, because he did challenge that incumbent to the right on Vietnam. But as he says, that guy, Grunig, who's the senator he replaced, was anti-war, probably would not have had the balls to do that with the Pentagon Papers. So we're better off with Maurice.
Respect, Maurice. Well, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we are going to be talking more Gravel, and beyond the man himself, we're going to be talking about his little acolytes, his teens, new from the filmmaker we're going to be speaking with, who has made a film that you can check out on Apple TV and Amazon and other places called American Gadfly. His name is Skye Wallin, and let's go to that tape. Okay, we are now joined by Skye Wallin, a maker of film, a documentarian, who has just come out with a new flick called American Gadfly about Mike Gravel and his rowdy band of teens. Skye, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys, for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
to you.
Yeah.
It's the first year I've been alive that Mike Gravel has not been with us, unfortunately, 2022. But why don't we begin by our respective, I guess, intros to the Senator Mike Gravel. I was just thinking about this today. I remember my 16th birthday, got some Famous Dave's barbecue, sitting down to watch, because it's my birthday, so I sat down to watch the 2008 presidential debate at the time, or the primary debates. This was 2007 on PBS. It was on PBS.
I think I went for paintball for my 16th birthday, but that sounds good too.
I mean, that's paintball. You kind of need friends to do, and
Right.
This was pre that stage. So I sat down, watched PBS, eating the brisket and the ribs, and this guy comes on TV, this debate moderated by Tavis Smiley, and he's talking about the war on drugs and for-profit healthcare and all this stuff that I had never really thought about. And that it really was, and I said this to Mr. Gravel when we interviewed him a few years ago, that really sort of started me on the path towards where my politics are now. Was that similar to your experience? I know you said somewhere that you saw him on those debates initially around that same time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, at the time, obviously the war in Iraq was going on and in full force. And yeah, I mean, I was just kind of starting to just become aware of things. Like I was learning a lot about Middle Eastern history at the time and in history class. And yeah, I was getting really pissed off, I guess. I mean, there was a documentary by Bill Moyers. I forget what it's called exactly.
Buying the War?
Yeah, that's it.
That's a banger. Yeah.
That's a great movie. Yeah, I watched that. It was sort of like realizing that you're in the Matrix or something. Because I was like, just learned about how just fucked up everything is, basically. And how, all these media channels really sold the war, and just being fed lies by the White House, and I'm including MSNBC in there and Fox and all these channels. So I was in a kind of a very upset state, and my friend ZT, he sent me. It was the early days of YouTube, I think. And he sent me some of the clips of Mike talking out, or lambasting everybody basically on those debates. And I fell in love with the guy. He was really speaking to my anger at the time, and educating me on a lot of issues that I hadn't really thought about, including the war on drugs. I remember that debate you're talking about with Tapas. And, it was really quite illuminating, and just hearing his passion, talking about how the war on drugs has destroyed our inner cities. I mean, if we're going to talk about, equality and race relations, and, you can't not talk about the war on drugs. So yeah. And then obviously his comments on the Iraq War, and in relation to his experience during the Vietnam War, in opposition to those policies and that travesty and tragedy. Yeah, I mean, it was really illuminating, because, when you're a kid, or at least for me, I didn't really think to question, if someone said that they're against the war, I didn't really think, well, they're lying through their teeth. But, when he went up there and was pointing at Hillary Clinton, shame on you, and telling other candidates, like, here's a strategy to end the war now, and you have to vote on the war every day, and just show the American people, and just every single day you'll lose the vote, but you'll see who's really for and who's really against. And I remember Tim Russert said, "Are you saying that you expect these candidates to suspend their campaigns and go and vote on the war?" And he said, "Well, if it stops the killing, my God, yes."
You're telling Chris Dodd he can't go to a Starbucks in Iowa City and tell people about his tax plan?
Right, exactly.
More important things?
Yeah, and so that, in the context of that Moyers documentary, and just like seeing how the whole game is played, and Mike just like calling people out, it really was very very illuminating for me. So I credit Mike with sort of being a very instrumental part of awakening me, I suppose. And I never. I'm not sure I fully expressed that to him, how thankful I am for that, but he probably knew in some level. But yeah, and so I was just, ever since then, became very, very anti, war machine and war on drugs, and there was a plethora of other issues. But yeah, and I followed Mike for, just many years. I always wanted to meet him and do something with him, and thankfully we were able to do this project together. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, because not to get too hung up on that debate in particular, but that includes that famous clip where Joe Biden is talking about AIDS, which always is a signal things are going to go well. Joe Biden talking about AIDS, and he said it's the responsibility of the white community to educate the black community and go to parks and get tested for AIDS. And he says, "I got tested. I know Barack got tested."
That's right. I remember that.
Good friends.
Supremely cringe. That was back when I was like, he would never be president.
Right. And it's amazing and that's such an amazing moment, because Obama ended up choosing him as his VP, and was like, that is the man who I need. Because that's what, most white Americans want, is you say something idiotic and you have your black friends say, it's okay. And like, exactly. Tapped into that psychology right. So well.
I did get tested.
Exactly.
It's funny because, Joe Biden and Gravel were colleagues at one time. And so he remembered him and thought he didn't take him seriously. Hillary Clinton, who he criticized for a hawkish stance on Iran, probably didn't take him seriously, and expected, this is what I was thinking about today too, she must have expected in 2015, when she started her next presidential campaign, and when Bernie Sanders announced he was going to challenge her, that he was going to be another Mike Gravel, that this is an old gadfly, as the title of your movie, but who's not going to be taken seriously by mainstream media. But public opinion had changed, and all those issues that Gravel had raised in 2007, 2008 were now taken a lot more seriously by the public.
I think you're probably right about that. And like many things, Hillary didn't think they were serious. And like including visiting Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You know, there was a series of miscalculations. I'm sure she thought Bernie would be similar to Mike. Yeah. So, but, and I imagine that she felt that, well, we're going to handle Bernie just like we handled Mike, which is laugh at them, and
use your charming laugh that America loves.
Right? Yeah. It's the kill stroke, but yeah, I know, and I'm really thankful for Bernie, but you know, I do think that I don't know. Maybe it's not fair, but I think Mike may have walked so that Bernie could run potentially. But people look back on those debates and they're like, yeah, that guy was right. I didn't even know about him back then. But, you know, I think the climate is much, you know, more receptive right now. I think the left is more receptive and more energized. There's more people in those groups to hear messages like things that Mike said and then pave the way for Bernie to have, you know, much more success. Unfortunately, he was, you know, of course, shot down, basically.
He was put into a state of terror.
Exactly. And but Mike really loved Bernie, and I remember talking to him in I guess it was during the Hillary Bernie primary in 2015 or something, and he was sure that Bernie was going to win. He said that Hillary was going to collapse under her own corruption, and that Bernie is the equivalent of the next George Washington.
Wow.
Yeah. I've got that recording saved somewhere.
And did they know each other at all? I know they in the movie they meet at the end, but were they?
They weren't very close, but I think they had met each other before. But it wasn't like he didn't, wasn't calling him up or anything like that. They weren't like old buddies by any means, but they definitely knew each other. They definitely respected each other. They had spoken before. But I think that's about the extent of it,
Right.
I was glad in the movie to learn that this is kind of the arc and that his vision included Bernie, because nothing wrong with this by any means. But when he came on our show, we were interviewing him, and I think I'm seeing now through the story of the movie how she was such a strategic ally. At one point, he just was like, he mentioned Tulsi, and he was like, yeah, vote for Tulsi, if not me, or something. And I kind of raised my eyebrows. I was like, Tulsi, huh? Like, not
right.
Again, not to make this like a huge anti-Tulsi thing, because I get it now, but like, I was always kind of hoping he was that he saw what we saw in Bernie,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, I think he was of two minds, of basically, he loved Bernie and he loved Tulsi. I think he really liked Tulsi's anti-war stance, and I'm not sure how he would feel right now, about her. I think he really saw her as a next generation anti-military industrial complex type figure who, if would adopt his direct democracy platform, would be like the perfect, successor to his cause. But I do give Tulsi credit that she spoke against the war machine on a big platform, spoke about the military industrial complex. I'm not going to endorse all of her policies or anything like that. I wouldn't endorse all of anyone's policies probably, but yeah, I mean, all along he saw Bernie, and eventually, came to agree with the kids that Bernie was the best vessel to carry on, their ideals, to run for president. So yeah, I mean, and in the end, we sort of overshadow it in the film, but he did do a double endorsement of Bernie and Tulsi. So, which was kind of weird. I think it kind of ticked off the Tulsi people, because they really promoted the Bernie endorsement more. And I think, the Tulsi people were confused and upset, but
yeah. Well, I think by now, I think the Bernie people have been vindicated on that question. Tulsi or Bernie. But...
Oh yeah, it's absolutely true. Yeah. And I think Mike would agree with that as well.
Yeah. But so taking it to 2019, 2020, what was the impetus behind that run? Because there was, a left flank in a way that there was not in previous elections by 2019. So what was the impetus behind him running and by the teens encouraging him to run? And how did you link up with them and start to make this movie?
Yeah, well, I think the impetus was, I mean, if you remember, basically everyone was throwing their hat in, and not a lot of people that were very promising in terms of idealism. A lot of, I mean, you look at Congress, and you could count on half a finger probably who's not fully bought and paid for. So, the kids definitely saw a very disappointing lineup. And yeah, I mean, that obviously they never were intending for Mike to win the presidency, but they did want to push their ideas, into the conversation. And they knew Bernie was running, but even to make Bernie seem more moderate in a way, like by pushing really far leftist ideas and putting them into the conversation, then that kind of would make Bernie seem like a more moderate in a way, just relative to what they're saying, and hopefully push Bernie more to the left. So they called Mike, and backtracking, they were kind of looking at how can we get involved? What can we do? And they, had become familiar with Mike Gravel, and they thought this would, wouldn't it be amazing if we got Mike back on the debate stage? Like, that would be the coolest thing ever. So yeah, so that's the impetus. And so they called him, and he kind of, well, he loves getting phone calls. So, but he was,
it's like Noam Chomsky with emails. This guy,
I called him. I actually talked to him on the phone when I emailed him to ask, will you do our podcast? He's like, I'd love to. Give me a call.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about Mike. He was so receptive because I have only seen him on the debates where he's like saying, shame on you, Hillary, like the military, so I was, when I finally got his phone number, I was a little, just a little scared. Like, is he going to yell at me, or, I don't know. Just, I'm a young person kind of
shame on you, film documentarian. Yeah. Calling an old man.
Yeah. You're part of the system. I was like, yeah. So I called him, and he's just so warm. It's just the nicest guy. I actually met him, not to sidetrack, but I met him for the first time in like 2014 or so for a different documentary. I made an excuse to I needed an interview with Mike Gravel. So I got his number for an environmental piece, and I called him, and he was like, yeah, you guys should I was in California at the time. He said, you guys should come over. So we brought my camera and a couple of friends, and actually went to his house, met his wife, Whitney. That was when he was living in the Bay Area, and went to his little apartment, and his wife made us all these sandwiches, and he was just showing us the old Pentagon Papers. And
what kind of sandwiches are we talking?
We are talking, they were like fig, cream cheese.
Fig.
Yes, fig cream cheese sandwiches. And they were delicious. Yeah.
Was it your birthday?
It felt like, and they made like hundreds of them. I felt we were like just stuffing our faces, and I'm like, I'm full. And they're like, what? You can't be full. So we kept eating, but no, we just had the best time. And it was the opposite of how he treats Hillary Clinton. Of course. I mean, and that was a silly.
You're very different than Hillary Clinton. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I know. It was like, well, I was, in my early 20s. I was probably had a little less confidence back then. So it was probably a silly fear. But anyways, that was awesome. That was like a life moment for sure. And anyway, so the kids, they called him. He said, do you have any idea how old I am? And, also my wife is not going to be for this, because the 08 campaign, was tough for them. I mean, they, financially it was tough. Emotionally, it was tough. It was also tough, health wise. Mike had been losing, he had been developing neuropathy. And so he was, not feeling his feet basically, during that '08 cycle. So that was, it was rough. And the idea of doing that again, 10 years later or whatever it was not, it was challenging to wrap your head around it, just with the whole situation. But the kids, they said, look, you don't have to leave the house, unless we get into the debates. And, we don't care how old you are. It's just about your ideas. Right. And he said, all right, well, I think this is a good idea. Let's do it. You guys understand Twitter and all this new stuff. And we can promote direct democracy and anti-war and all that, anti-nuclear. And you guys can kind of do what, you guys have to do it basically. And you have to convince my wife first. So they were able to convince Whitney, and and then it was just a process of memifying Mike and sort of updating his, or just reintroducing him in a new way to a new generation with new technology, to a much more receptive population, I think, than there was in '07, '08.
The idea is sound to add more left voices to the debate to just kind of shore up the numbers. I remember watching the first one before he's on there, where this is before Warren has really distinguished herself from the Bernie flank of the Democratic Party. And it seemed like they were like back to back, just taking blows from like 7 or 8 people in a row. And you do the questions, you go down the line for every single candidate. And having another guy in there would help, or at least even if you don't make it onto the debate, knowing that there are other left-wing candidates is like, okay, we do have to recognize you and we can't all just gang up on the personality of this one old man.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I absolutely agree. And call me crazy, but if we're talking about a debate, I would like to hear perspectives like from interesting people, even if they're not necessarily going to win. But like if we're talking about ideas and we're debating ideas, that's why I loved, having Marianne Williamson up there.
Look, they got Tim Ryan.
Yeah.
Who else do you need? A guy I forgot existed until I watched this movie again.
I know. There are a collection of people that will be forgotten by history unless you watch my movie. Tom Delaney's definitely one of them. I hope he watches it. But I actually, every time I watch the movie, I feel a little bit bad for John Delaney. They really crushed him, but he deserved it. But
the slide photo of just him on that slide with a just an auspicious look on his face, like
I know. Feel bad for him. When I watched the film, it made me nostalgic for making fun of him.
Yeah,
he really does. Foil. Yeah, and he makes me very angry, as with anyone with our politics. Mm-hmm. But one of the criticisms I think I would have, or I had with Bernie, is that he pulled punches, right? Especially with Biden. He didn't hit back very strongly. And maybe that ultimately is the reason I'm not running the Bernie campaign, is because I would tell him to go for the jugular, and that would have backfired, because the same
what it is.
The same leeway is just not allowed for progressive candidates. If you listen to David Simon, the tiny amount of criticism offered to Hillary Clinton from Bernie in 2016 was just totally disqualifying.
It cost her the election, actually.
Right. It's just completely absurd. Right. Mm-hmm. Completely absurd compared to what actually came out of his mouth and his tweets and stuff. But this candidacy allowed for a forum for people to not pull punches from the left and have a big platform and hit back against these, corporate. Yeah,
it was a heavy gun. Could fight dirty with the Gravel campaign and get in there. And I love Bernie. I feel like not electing Bernie was like something out of a sci-fi novel where like the society like has like a little possibility of saving itself, and then they're like, no, we're gonna elect the like guy who's asleep. But the thing is, it's true. There's so many of these corporatist candidates up there, and they're all military industrial complex people, and they're probably nice people, honestly. Like, to be a politician, but they're corrupt and they're somehow fundamentally evil. And then you have like Bernie, like one guy. So it was refreshing this time to see, Marianne, even, I know people have opinions about Andrew Yang, but I thought he had interesting ideas out there. And I just remember 2008, once the primary field narrowed and it was just Hillary and Barack. And I hated those debates so much. They literally didn't disagree on anything. Yeah. It was just like Diet Coke or Coke.
Right. But they were incredibly vicious, especially compared to 2016. It was like the inverse and opposite. 2016 was just so cordial, but like vehement disagreement over policies. But in 2008, it was very nasty, personal, often racist stuff, but no real disagreement on substantive issues.
Such dirty campaigning, but so much ado about nothing. It's like, God, like and that's how our whole system is designed within the media. Just of course feeds it is we want a battle, but not a battle of ideas. We want a battle of these people, these personalities, the Clinton machine versus the new black senator, junior senator. It's like it's like a game. Obviously we know this, but the idea of just having interesting people. I mean, this may be a little too crazy, but like I would love to have like a philosopher and like I don't know, like people that are interesting to like just at least we can talk about what is our country, what does it mean, what are other ideas, like instead of these basically law school corporatists who are just trained to just bullshit us. I don't know, but. Call me crazy, but so I mean, I think it would have been beautiful to have Mike up on the stage. It would have been really fun, honestly. But yeah, I mean, Bernie is much more of a tame. He's I love him, but he's definitely he's a team player, right? And that's his political choice, and it has probably allowed him to get to where he is, frankly. But yeah, I mean, obviously he was unable to defeat the conspiracy against him at the end there before Super Tuesday, which was tragic. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, I think the Gravel campaign had some freedom. Like it was allowed to just be kind of crazy, and just be more out there and there was a big audience for that. And yeah, I don't know. It's I don't want to overstate its influence. I think it had a real impact, but I mean, it was for me it was a hell of a lot of fun to cover and to, I don't know. I mean, I wanted to get involved in the election, but I was just like, it's whatever I do, it's going to be super depressing. But this project really allowed me to be happy and fun, throughout the whole thing, and a little light about it while also sort of being involved. So yeah. And
you get pretty early access to, the teens doing this stuff in the movie. Yeah. How did you originally get in touch with them? Did they reach out to you, or how did that relationship begin?
Well, okay. So yes, I mean, one of the special things is that we were able to actually film the whole thing even before they met Mike in person. So what I was doing was, I mean, I was like emailing the kids and trying to find their information. And I couldn't get through to them. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to call Mike. So I called Mike and he was like, yes, here's their contact information. Sounds great. Cause I had met him like 5 years earlier, as I said. And, yeah. And then I called David Ox, I think. And he's like, oh yeah. We saw your emails.
We didn't answer them.
Yeah, I know.
It was funny to us.
I mean, well, look, I mean, these kids are super smart, but they're also in high school. Like, I mean, I can't imagine, they're starting to get press and all these things. So like, I don't blame them for ignoring my email, I want to do a documentary. when I was their age, like even now, like I miss a lot of things. But yeah, so yeah, Mike connected me with them personally, and then so I said, look, I gotta like find money, but like I think I can like fly out there and film you guys before you meet Mike next week, and that was in early 2019, and so yeah, and then they said great, let's do it, and then the rest is history. But actually, there was some little behind the scenes drama because HBO. Vice, the show Vice, when it was back on HBO, they were doing a story about Mike in the campaign, and they like didn't want me there.
Oh no!
Yeah, so they sort of like were like intervening at the last second, right before I was going to fly out, and I had to like fight them basically, and I had to bring Mike in actually because the kids were like, it was their first foray into all this, and they, that HBO coverage was important at that early stage, and I totally agreed that they needed that. And I said,
like, no, we're sending an alt comic to do whippets with Mike Gravel.
Yeah, exactly. So I told the kid, if they said, look, I don't know, we don't know what to do. Like, HBO doesn't want you there, and they don't want you to be there at the airport when we meet Mike, etc. And I said, look, we're doing different things. You're going to want someone on your side to like film the press filming you. I'll say that. And I also said, look, you guys have the power. Like they want you, right? Obviously you have more power than you realize. Like, don't let them scare you. And then I called Mike, like told him the situation, and he was like, well, why can't we all just be together? Like, they can have cameras over there and you can have the cameras. I said, yeah, totally. I'm all good with that. So I just killed those HBO guys with kindness. Honestly, I was just super nice. I was like, if you guys want to stay at our Airbnb, like, it's totally cool. Like, I don't think the guy knew how to deal with me. But ultimately it was fine. And then the story they ended up putting out was kind of a slam piece, actually. So I was happy. Yeah. So the kids, I think, were ultimately happy that I was there and could sort of set the record straight. It became like a 9/11 truther and like kids taking advantage of an old man story, that sucked, honestly. And they didn't even mention that they're trying to get to the donor goal, the 65,000, which I was like, well, yeah, that's fucked up. So anyways, we were able to all film together, and there was peace. I don't think I blew up any bridges with those guys, but yeah, I mean, that's just a little behind the scenes stuff, the games that get played,
Yeah.
Was it off-putting actually seeing them for the first time? Because the main thing with your movie is, like, I understand the concept of the Gravel teens, but then when you look at them, you're like, they're so small. You put them in your pocket. How are they out there doing stuff?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess so. Well, one thing I was like, when I started the project, I was 20, about 30, I guess, almost 30. But I was reading what they were doing, and I was talking to them on the phone, and I was like, yeah, like, we're like the same. And then meet them, and I'm like, no, I'm a lot older. I'm an old guy now. Like, you gotta have these moments in your life when you're like, I'm actually kind of old. I'm
in no way a teen,
right?
Of any stripe.
No, yeah. So yeah, there. It's like funny things like I forgot my toothbrush, stuff like that, like kid stuff, and then, and like we're not old enough to rent a car, stuff like that, and then it's like, then they're like quoting Rawls and like philosophy and like stuff that I don't even know, I couldn't even explain, but super smart. There's guys that are super smart, heavyweight intellectuals who can really speak at a very, very high level. I don't know if you've had a chance to speak with them, but Henry Williams in particular, he can talk for hours and it's all great. It's like all gold. Like, I remember at the Miami debates, we got back to the hotel and it was like, I don't know, it was like 2 a.m. or something. And we had to do final interviews. And I'm like, all right, hoping that Henry's interview is like 15 minutes because I'm dead. Anyways, Henry sits down for the interview, chugs a Red Bull. I'm like, oh God. And then we sit down, buckle up for about a 2-hour interview, and it's all really good material. The hardest part about editing was probably isolating Henry's best, dialogue and figuring out what to cut, because there's just hours and hours and hours of like really brilliant material. But you obviously can't use most of it. So, but yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but no, I mean, yeah, it was always just really kind of funny to me, like how young they were and how old Mike was, and then I'm kind of like sort of not quite perfectly in the middle, but kind of a middle generational person who was like involved with Mike a while ago. And, I don't know. It was like multiple generations sort of working together and doing something kind of wacky. I don't know. It was great.
It's cool seeing people that young who are, because you always see like teenagers who are involved in the activist side of politics. I feel like they're well represented in media coverage of this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But for like actual democratic political establishment coverage, there are not very many young people that interested in that kind of thing. And the ones that are a lot of the time, and I mean, this is just my opinion, but careerists, like people are like, I would like to be on CNN when I'm 30. I will go into politics. And it's cool seeing that there are other people who are like, no, we can do something with this. And I'm smart and I know how to get involved, and I'm going to put myself out there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was really great. And also they were really, I think, brave, or maybe they were too young to be cautious in a way. Yeah. Like they were sort of reckless. And, Henry said,
the way everyone was treating you guys the entire time, when you kept going into meetings and people were pulling them aside to say, don't do any pranks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. The Tulsi people, they were really scared.
They were terrified of the pranks.
Yes, they were. Yeah. Well, because the Tulsi people like invited Mike Gravel and his wife Whitney to the debate as audience members, and Mike said, "We're not going, but give the tickets to the kids." So they had to give the tickets to the kids. And there were multiple people, multiple emails and verbal situations where the Tulsi staff was like, listen, you can't, the candidate will get docked time to speak, if you do anything. And so that's where the whole joke was that, well, they were telling Mike, and Mike was like, well, they just think you're sophomoric and the campaign sophomoric. And also don't do anything because I cherish my friendship with Tulsi. And he said, well, the pie that I brought is unrelated. They said, I don't think Mike laughed at that, but
we just brought some toilet paper and banana cream pies and eggs, or just hanging out.
Right. Which they were thoroughly pat down for before they were like,
it seemed like the DNC was super paranoid that they were going to do something too, and they were like leaning on the Tulsi campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the Tulsi campaign got like notices from the DNC, because they know the DNC is very aware of Mike Gravel. They don't like him. Howard Dean, who was the chair back in the 2008, Mike overheard Howard Dean like saying, we got to get that guy hell off the stage. And then the next debate he was off. So
I have a question about that. I was wondering this watching the movie, spoilers if you have not seen the film or history in motion. But, what happens is he gets to the 65,000 donor mark that you need to technically be on stage. But then this crazy thing happens out of left field, which is that there are so many candidates that have reached the other requirement, the 1% in polling, that he actually isn't allowed on the stage because the whole stage is filled up. Mm-hmm. Do you think, because the DNC is aware of Mike Gravel and does not want him on the stage, that something happened there to make that happen?
I think, well,
Is this conspiratorial thinking or
well, not necessarily, but I mean, if you're saying that were the rules designed just to prevent Mike Gravel to get on stage, I would not agree with that. But I would agree, and it's the Dave Weigel, Washington Post guy. He's actually one of the few good political journalists that I really like. He said that were these rules designed to keep someone like Mike Gravel off the stage? Absolutely. So, I wouldn't say that it was just designed to prevent Mike, but someone like Mike. So, it is what it is. I mean, I would say that the rules, I mean, the polling rule, really kind of sucked because the kids, they didn't really realize how hard it would be to get actually on polls. That's kind of the game. I mean, you got even before de Blasio, I mean, you have like Oprah on polls. It's like, she's not even running.
Right.
It's like what, Michelle Obama on the poll. It's like, why is she on the poll? Like that's bullshit. Like I don't know. And then just your fame makes you poll, right? Just how well you're known is it. So I think you got de Blasio up on stage and he's got, I don't know, it was a couple thousand donors or something like that. The sitting mayor.
Who are these people who are donating to Bill de Blasio?
That giving him
was confusing
every day.
It's the milk lobby. Yeah. They want to forward the largest Democrat they can.
Yeah. So it was just, so then they were like, all right, well, we only have 20 spots on the stage. And if they were it doesn't matter if they were getting the donations required, but only if they're polling. That was weighed heavily, more heavily than the donors. So it was like, well, so then that's where the whole Drop Out Delaney campaign came from, which was, partly like to troll a like boring, corrupt dude, but also it was somewhat strategic because if Delaney did drop out and listen to the many, many thousands of people who wanted him to, then Mike would have been on stage.
Mm.
Not to spoil, if I'm spoiling.
Yeah, he unfortunately does not make it to the debates. But
yeah.
What do you think that debate would have been like if you had gotten?
It would have been very entertaining. It's hard to say. I mean, I think Mike would have delivered, honestly. I mean, it would have been, his health was declining, but we would have gotten him there. And I think he would have spoken about direct democracy. That would be his main thing. And he would have gotten up there, and no matter what the question was, he would have tied it back to the only way to get any of this done or to, defeat the military industrial complex, any of that, is you need to have his idea was a fourth branch of government, which would be a people's legislature that would be the senior partner of all the branches. So it's a very, very ambitious thing, but that was his life's work in the end.
Right.
And he wrote a book about it. The Broken, maybe look it up for me, but it's basically about direct democracy. People should check it out. But it's just his idea of how the language could work in the Constitution. He was definitely open for other ideas, but yeah, the most important thing for him was introducing that.
Is it citizen power?
No, that's the old one. Is
it the failure of representative government and the solution?
That's right. The failure of representative government and the solution. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to make sure to get to that, which is his big life's work, as you said, which is something I go back and forth on because I'm not sure how it's quintessential Mike Gravel because I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'm glad that he has been there raising the issue, which is that there should be, I don't know if he wants to do away with with Congress, but he does at least want to supersede it with the power of citizens of America to introduce legislation and approve it or disapprove of it by via referendum. And part of me is like, well, that seems like kind of a weird goal to have when you still have like the bourgeois state, and you would need to dismantle that first, and maybe this would replace it. But maybe this would coincide with that project as well. But do you know how he got this idea and how it developed?
I'm not exactly sure how he originally got it. I know he looked at the Swiss government as an example, but he believed, and he spoke about this. He said, we're not really a democracy, and which is true. I think there's a myth, in American culture that we are a democracy. We're a democratic republic, bought and paid for by the military-industrial complex. No, so yeah, but I think I have in my closet here, I have hundreds of hours of tapes, and they're not VHS. They're like an older VHS. I don't know what it's called, but anyways, they're all like scholars and research. And I mean, he has put in many, many, many thousands of hours of work into the philosophy behind direct democracy as he sees it in America. And he believed that that if it's like the final step of the American Revolution, and that if we were to implement it, it would spread like a wildfire throughout the world. So, I think he just, he was in the Senate. He was a 2-term senator. He, he saw the corruption. He saw what happened when he read the Pentagon Papers and the backlash, and then he saw America continue to make the same mistakes that they made in Vietnam. And he just cannot see a way for our current system to be just and to do the right thing. I think that's where it comes from. I mean, at least, and where the idea that this is the only solution. He can't see a way for our current system to pass. I think he thinks, he thought that, some good things could happen, but like the structural change that's necessary for a truly like equal society that is, rooted in peace, cannot be done because everything's gamed, because
Right.
of money, because of interest. And the only way to fix that would be to have, the people being able to keep other branches in check. So I don't know if it's the way. I know it's very, very difficult to do that. It would require like a huge, like 200 million people, demanding it or something like that.
Yeah.
But I still think it's worth talking about. Like, I think it's in a more general sense, it's important. I mean, we should be talking about how do we make our nation more democratic, because we're not that democratic. I mean, a couple things, but, I think even if you don't agree that we should do this, we should at least be talking about that we're not really a democracy.
Yeah.
Like, it's important to talk about. Like, can we not talk about it? Like, so that I think would be the greatest piece of Mike being up there. And also he would be just badass, of course, as always. I think he would have been on his top game. I mean, he would be able to turn on and be really sharp, up to the very last moments. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
no, I think it's definitely important to raise and to point out the problems with the nation state. And, I think the piece I might add to his proposal or have it work in tandem with is the need to abolish capitalism, which I think he, towards the end of his life, was a little bit more sympathetic to. But as we're rounding out here, we got the Gravel Institute, whatever you think of the campaign, I think it's pretty, positive that we now have if nothing else, a YouTube channel that is fighting the PragerUs of the world and sort of offering people who are not tuned into politics an alternative view that they wouldn't get from a lot of other platforms.
Mhm.
But I'm curious what you think about and I'm definitely accused of being a horse race junkie or whatever, and I accept that label. But for 2024, I think perhaps the best case scenario is that we at least get a protest candidate to challenge either Biden or Kamala Harris. Who do you think that might be, and how are they going to go about it?
I mean, it's a great question. I think someone from the left certainly needs to primary Joe. If Joe's really going to run, or whoever's Kamala. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, Kamala's doomed to win a general election for sure. But I don't know. I mean, I think honestly, like people like Bernie. I mean, honestly, I go back to classic Bernie, but I don't know. I'm kind of just. I think Bernie's the strongest guy probably to do that. I don't know.
Maybe we should get some precocious teens to go call Bernie Sanders.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I don't know how old AOC is right now, but maybe she could do it.
She's 17.
She's 17.
Right. Well, I'm thinking now. I feel like nobody's going to launch the serious campaign, but at least we could get I don't know some Noam Chomsky or somebody to at least
that would be fun.
Say they will run.
I mean, maybe someone like Crystal Ball would be a good debater. I don't know. It's such a wasteland for people that are actually in power right now in terms of like a really reliable progressive, like a progressive lion, or a lioness, like Mike was. I mean,
I mean, if you're just doing protest candidates, why don't you just like make some really cool celebrity go in and just yell about
Cynthia
it? And that will
Nixon,
get more
maybe.
press attention.
Yeah.
I mean,
Even more relevant than Cynthia Nixon. Get like Olivia Rodrigo on the debate stage before she's blown out of the water. It will get the most clicks that has ever been involved in a Democratic primary.
I mean, we're living in a post-Trump world, so that is the answer to that question, right? If there's nobody who has a political career, I mean, you had Andrew Yang, in the last election, and he's not a progressive guy, but nobody really raised an eyebrow about the fact that he had never held office or anything, because we were just like, oh yeah, you can do that now.
Yeah.
So let's get weird.
And he just keeps running for office.
Yeah, just like Beto. I mean, I hope that they don't make rules that are impossible. I mean, I think that the last rules were sort of the most open that they've done in anything that I know of. So I hope that they don't. I hope that the Democratic Party isn't like, well, we don't want Yangs and Marianne Williamsons and potentially Mike Gravel's. So we're going to just lock this down again like we used to, which is very possible. I mean,
how rude of us would it be to stop the Democratic death spiral before the party just completely explodes?
It's true.
They're doing great right now.
It's true. I mean, I spent a lot of the pandemic reading the Foundation books, and I recommend them. But I love sci-fi because it's fiction, but it's like so true. We
should run clones.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's just the poor. Yeah, the Democratic Party is it better just for it to just implode faster, or to try to save it and make the inevitability slower? I don't know, but all I know is that I'm hoping that there'll be a quixotic, wacky campaign that I'll be able to cover again.
Yeah, here's hoping. But until then, where can people find your work and you?
Yeah. Well, we just launched on like all the major internet VOD platforms like Apple and Amazon Prime, Vudu, YouTube, stuff like that. We're on cable VOD as well. And if you need a DVD, which a lot of people are emailing me that they want a DVD, you can get one on Amazon. So yeah, we're working with Gravitas and our distributor, and we're pretty much, self-moving this whole thing. So any support, is very helpful. And yeah, I think I really hope you enjoy the movie because it's It's not depressing. I mean, you can see it in some kind of depressing lens, but it's just funny and light. And it's about serious things, but it's also kind of just whimsical, I think. And I think it's an easy watch. So and I don't know if anyone watched the Mayor Pete documentary. I don't want to slam that, but
I do.
It's sort of, I consider it like the chaotic fun antithesis to the Mayor Pete film. So yeah, anyways.
There you go. Oh, well, the movie's called American Gadfly, and yeah, you can get it. You can check it out. All right, Skye Wallin, excuse me. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. This has been a lot of fun.
What if we did plugs?
Plugs. Let's do plugs. I have a live show on the 18th at the Gutter in Greenpoint, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, NYC. It's the first edition of my new stand-up show. It's called Meat Space because it's IRL, like in Meat Space. Get it? Alex is going to be on it. Also, it's my birthday. You should come hang out. There's a ticket link in the bio. Also, it might get canceled because of Omicron, but I still have to promote it as if it's actually happening.
Which it is as of now.
Yeah.
It is as of now.
Right.
You might as well get one anyway. You'll get a refund.
I'm also going on tour with Eve 6 in the spring. Same rule applies. Omicron. That's it.
Omicron. Anders?
I'm going on tour with Eve 7. Damn, fun.
Oh, wow. That sounds even better.
One better.
I'm going to see Anders' tour.
Oh.
I'm at Anders Lee here on Twitter, Dursley1, Instagram. Check out Redacted Tonight, my other JOB. And, we're doing a film episode this week, and we're talking about spectacles. And, of course, that's not all too radical politics, or even most of radical politics, but I think it's serves an important role. And one thing that I would promote on that front is the movie National Champions, which I really enjoyed. Not a perfect film, but I think a good, solid, good film about a labor strike for a national championship bowl game, because student athletes do not get a fair share. They don't get compensated for their labor. So this is about what if they went on strike, and it would be cool. And it's a conversation that I think the country needs to have. And I think a way to do that is by checking out this film. You can see it, I think, in some theaters, or rent it, as I did, for like $20, but it was worth it. It's a good movie. With
get some friends together.
Yeah, watch it.
Not that bad between 4 people.
Yes. But a thing you can do in Meat Space is attend, if you're in New York City, something that Alex will tell you about right now.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Little segue. Segue for the plug.
Are you in Meat Space? That was what I was going to start with. There is a big EcoSoc event next Thursday, January 13th, fucking at Bryant Square Park.
You're nailing
the
it.
park you know and love, outside of the new governor, Kathy Hochul. That's her name, right?
Yes.
Kathy Hochul.
Hochul.
The governor, Kathy Hochul, is sitting in her ivory tower. We're going to the ivory tower, and we're saying, you're the new governor. Why don't you pass this fucking bill Andrew Cuomo didn't want to pass? That has overwhelming public support and will maybe start a dent in renewable energy in New York sometime soon. So, if you value your life, I think it's a good use of your afternoon. It's 11 a.m., Bryant Square Park, January 13th. Be there. Another plug I have, an equally big thing to stopping climate change. I have launched a Kickstarter for Theater of the Light Season 4. It's here. It's raw. You can vote on what we're going to be doing for the season. Will it be a Horse Girls show? Is it going to be a soap opera and big money times? Is it going to be another anime thing? You're going to have to go in there and make your voice heard. It's a very low startup cost, but these take a long time to make, so I do have to do a Kickstarter for it, and you can find that pinned on my Twitter at Patak Test Kitchen on twitter.com, your number one source for tweets.
Your number one source for tweets.
Twitter.com.
Do it to it.
Today's sponsor is twitter.com. Tweet it.
It's in the tweet.
It's tweeted.
It's tweeted.